Alright, so I said we want to get everybody talking, and I also like to make sure that you all keep thinking. So I'm changing up our question for this round. So we'll go around and do introductions of just, we'll do just this row, and they can say if they can have one superpower.
다 그런저 다른 모두 제디스 교다인 라스라 민체 안테 하나씩 그런저 믹스에 슈지요나 아니 가리요나 딕서레레저라 그게 뭐인바 믹스에 슈 슈퍼파워 레라 딘디요나 가리요나 딕서레스다
네 메라세노
Sonam. His name is Sonam.
Tani ngalta misexu. Zoli alu jay shis gdu tegdus.
Harche.
Sai kola de alu jay thoy.
Kirangi gyatue.
Kasingal sai kola de alu jay thoy ni pachi na ni kanga chanyo bozo josres.
Kare nyombo sesare.
Kanga chupanda buchi. Shedenda buchi.
So if he has a superpower, he will make this world a peaceful one.
I like that. I hope you get it.
The dish should be raw, so can yes. Correct. No, Jordan. Nawang Jordan is his name. Karchisare Sambo. Sambo Yursare Radha Thama. So if he has superpower, he would like all sentient beings. He would like to turn all sentient beings into kind being. So. Kare. Lopsang Yarpel. Yunten. Lopsang Yunten. Langbo chegela. Tanda langbo che marigala. Semje lai marigala. Tanda semje mare mixe shuk khari jonas. Shuk chimbu. And he wants to be powerful like elephant. La. Tile Gelsen is his name. I would like to challenge all the, if I have a superpower, I would like to challenge all those who are naughty and who create nuisance.
When I ask my students in the state these questions, I never get the answers about making everybody nice or the world peaceful.
Tanga tanda nupchola di thiyo di pu lobchu dinjol tang wainas tende khiranzola mixe shu jena khar chigelan len ragu ralas khiranzo do len ragu mundu chide soya da ma tanda joba nyamba sama ma kaya da dinjol len dinde ragu mundus.
I get answers like flying or strength or x-ray vision.
Nila du Quranzo len khari gi lana nupchoba dinjogi shu chimbu chana disare yana phurthuna disare yana mik thoya manda ragu da namju dinde thoya gi nibe manda jran disare dinde la di dos.
So are there questions that people still want to ask before we get started?
Zinda di go mazu khon la tiwa in the US khiranzo bani. Tiwa yes there are.
Tanda di khone the trouble she is on the trouble di jiban no ne tsubung ra mi ne ni sa so no ta chi ne sun so jiba de shi so ra. 근데 제가 이용 거야. 제 고유증이니까 나는 도움 이거
We asked this question that we have in humans we have 23 pair of chromosomes and like in dogs there are 39. So how come we have 23 chromosomes? So is it because of the environment or what?
Just because they have more chromosomes doesn't mean that they have more DNA or more genes.
The Quranzola tsubu manga yorla dubala Quranzola DNA manga da ani rigze manga yorla ni kyabgi yomares.
The chromosomes just have to do with the units that are broken up when the cell divides. And sometimes a cell makes a mistake and breaks one off and it becomes a new chromosome. And that's how new chromosomes sometimes get formed.
Kabre khaji lana tanda chromosome tanda chubung di ma loga doniba and chubung sawa dube dinde yong si res di nanglo da chikshi ro chik yo dinde do chaksha yo res kabre koran chik di khone ni chaya jora dinde chag yo res.
So if you took those 26 chromosomes from a dog and lined up their genes with our genes, they would almost all entirely match up. They don't have extra genes.
Dilo dita tanda ngazu kini da rigzet ni staru di khili ani midanyam do ding ni ta waina ta du gala sung di res ni ga do cha di res.
In fact, I work with a very simple animal, a little worm, and it has genes almost the same number as us.
당시 부준주 주레스 디 차샤와네 쿠란수 rigzet ta waina rigzei mangnung thanga jura mi rigzet manga thanga jura di da ani mangnung do cha di res.
And those genes that deal, that function for very basic functions, like using oxygen are almost identical between us and worms.
tanda budi cha샤와나 ta rigzet ta waina rigzet di peshawaina tanda ju solong peju che jura dila ta waina rigzet ni ka chipa cha di res bu imbaina re mi imbaina rigzet chipa res.
And then we say those genes are conserved across many species.
An tanda di rigzet di ani nirig mangbu na nyarsa cheurlan shi res.
부대는 검은 상가로 수능 시 이사비 차 이사비 뭐 이사비 저라 네 단단한 그 하러가 안에다 이 검은 이제 그 상가 있나가 사실은 공부 장량계 보여서 사실은 그 장량계 보여서 네 사실은 그게가 안에 다 되는 상가 있나요? 뭐 맞게 되는 거다. 이게 가르치 같이
Ta phama hasele pu kyo ina pu phama kyang ke do hashi pu kyang ke do so ani chik di ha ha khari chang ale ta phane ni chu ni sasum lewa ina ge ti chu So his question is for some parents they give birth to only sons, and in some cases we see only daughters. And even if like we get both 23 chromosomes from a father and 23 from a mother, they are not able to bear children. So how come such things happen?
For the parents that have all sons, it's mostly luck. Sometimes it's because there's a bad mutation on say the father's X chromosome. So sometimes when he tries to make a daughter, it doesn't work.
Ta lungda do ke shi ra las chik ta phukyang ga kenge bai na ra pe sha na pala di cha sha na khoran lo chromosome XY yo ras X la jurdo do ni ani lega ma che che ani pu di ta phama ti du galan pu phuran ke ni ri yung yo ras.
So the man in humans determines the gender of the baby.
Ta dila du gal pu di pho yung re pho re more la jura di ni sui di chi yor law na ani pala la ra le res.
No, I'm just getting you
So when a man makes a sperm, it's either going to put in it an X chromosome or a Y chromosome. The egg, which is waiting for the sperm, only has an X chromosome to give. So if an X sperm goes to the egg, this is a girl. If the Y sperm goes with the egg, this will be a baby boy.
Ta di phai kham kau di ba cha shasra di mau di che mai kham mau che ta di phai kham kau ni kisi sobung X da Y la ni ra X di mai X nim do malta X ma shio marlan shira mai X di da phai X di de oina apu phomo chung res kisi phai Y ji do di da ani mai X di ni de oina apu phu ki res.
So what Megan was saying is maybe on this X chromosome is something that's just a little bit not right, and only the Y sperm can be successful, and then that man has all boys.
Dilo du kabre khar chungula na di chubung X di tis chita ta mai ba chera an che chang ani Y di khadu no X nem do thu ani di phama di nem do che du gala u phamu rang ke ti ri ngu res gonda phurang ke
네, 저는 뒤에 타마대로 타마대가 맞아 저거는 중요한 저거는 아니 진짜 타마단지 안돼요 맞아요 많이 맞으면 괜찮죠 단 남시지라고 남시 한주에라고 딱 한주에 되는 거지는 이렇게 뭐 이렇게 많은 게 나왔더니
ale dini thisar jala thesar jala namshi ji ligir larwas
저는 남식 들으라고 막 경험한 남식 근데 나는 사실은 팀에 대한 상황 표현해가지고 뒤에는 사실은 좀 많이 있는데요.
so nangchu was the lower namshi je di shigir lower lawmar mala so even if all the conditions are favorable and we have a healthy sperm and a healthy egg but still that parents are not able to bear children so how come such things happen?
There can be a problem. Perhaps the woman has a problem with her body, that she's not able to carry a baby to term. So if there's something wrong in one of our genes that is important for carrying a baby, then that couple might have trouble.
Tikta thanda phime jura mora subula yang kangi da de yo ina stra thudin da de ani pu di chagi yo mares an thang shi rigze lage yang kyen do sho chi ina ani pu chagi yo mares.
Men also have to make a lot of sperm.
Okay, so he said like there is no defect in the genes also. Everything is fine. If everything is fine, but still some parents.
If everything is fine, then they would be able to make a baby.
Changma chawo yor lara changma tapta yor la na pu ki re pu chai res. Correct? So he said like in Buddhism, even if all the conditions are favorable, if that we talk about consciousness, if that consciousness doesn't enter into this union of egg and sperm, we don't say there is life. So,
well, science can't explain that question, but science, as a scientist, my answer would be there are a lot of genes involved in making a baby. We don't know what all of them are yet. So my guess would be if there's a couple and they can't make a baby and scientists can't find a problem, there probably is a problem, we just don't know where to look yet.
tanda nangchu gi tanda kyang zu chuosh tang da dil ani len gya thu mares ngi ra she thu yo mares tanda namshi da den shi ora digal ani manjo cheri na she oina ta rize samma ta yo che ani den imbai na phamani ta di kura di de oina pu chagir lan shi yo res ra ta ine ma cha oina ani rize kharil kangi yo me da rize khari gita tanda pu chagir me di tanda anjo seo ji shingi yo mares ta khezi pu ma cha oina kangi di khoyor lani ta nyesa tanda khashi khariyor lana nye thu yo mares di khoy me di ta da zugu chuk thu yo mares.
There are so many steps from wanting a baby to having a baby that sometimes it seems to me as a medical doctor just amazing that we are successful in having babies.
Dila du pu cha jora da dila du gal pu cha gi de ba yo che pu cha da di changma la du gal ngara member jins imbe cha shani da pu cha la di da hang san do res kurim di.
Everything has to go perfect to go from the desire to have a baby to have a beautiful healthy baby.
Dila du pu gondo yo che thang na chi pu ke da di changma de ro cha de res di changma hang san yan chen bu ro res.
Also maga ko je je pache ni DNA mani je pache ro ni ti to ji ko khase la do yo ali to ni ju pa ya ni chha de pa
do ya da shimba di khare
do yo pa ya
ripa ya mi gura nang lo la. So even if we humans have same genes and same DNA, but we can see variations. We are different, like in terms of appearance and intelligence. How come these differences occur?
That's a good question. So we don't have exactly the same DNA. About 1 out of 1,000 base pairs will be different between people.
DNA 정말 찍바 말했어. 가스나 단단한 좀 불송란 시에서 제디. 니 셰도가라 찍동네 찍라 개바두고 레스트만.
Right. And we also have different experiences in life that help shape us. So you can have identical twins with the exact same DNA, but as they grow up and they eat different foods and they have different lives, they can start to look different.
딜라드다 세마지 임바이나스 코라니 DNA 찍바이네 야 코리오기 kengi 코라니 미제 로로 키그라 디케두가 세사당다 코리오다 디 kengi 안 두스타두가 넘바디 로가 통교레스. sema yimba ine.
네, 또 되게 그냥 아마 맞지스라. 제세 그 중정만 아니 담보지 언제 보이나 시스 보면은 연로하다. 아니 담보 보면이나 시스 본 연로하다. 리스기로 왔으라.
Dende sigire wasra. Dende duare sigirore. Yore. Dende yore ra da tha chusara.
아니 시스 보면 연로 인가 에센스 아니 든지 디니 뭐지 차느라. 된저 가리진 저 그래서라. 된지 요 아들이 니반라고 가리진.
So what he's saying is like we know that when a baby is born, first it's a son and then it changes into daughter, and we know that. So how come this chromosome changes from X to Y and Y to X likewise? So what is that energy which changes it?
We don't think that happens.
Manju dende yungu yore samgu yomares phuni phomo gyurgur lejora ditsigi yomares.
There are babies that will have both boy parts and girl parts though.
Dende yong series ta di subui chashita wa na phuda phomo niga ju yo doji dende yong series ta phurang je phomo gyur lejora di manju tsigi yomares. Da. Singmo. So what he's saying is, I have a sister, and when she was born, it was a boy, and after 2 days, the boy changed into a girl.
Have you seen something like that in medicine?
Although I have never seen this, I have read in textbooks that there are, so in my brain, every girl is an XX and every boy is an XY in people.
Tangara dinde thong ma nyusra, and thebna la kharilor la na thebna tadu gal khatuina, phula du gala subung na XY yo che, pomula du gala XX imbaji haku yes.
But I have read that there are populations where a baby looks like a girl, but it's really an XY in its cells.
Dilo du khashe kharir law na di mi khashe nala tadu gala pomo do che hine chobung la tadu gala chobung na kharir la na XY imba dinde yo res.
And it takes some time for the hormones in that baby to show the difference that it's really XY and not XX.
Di subu nanglo la hormone la jora digi ani tujutis korgu res XY gi kheje tu jora dilo tujuj korgu res.
I have never seen that. I've only read about it, and I only thought it was in South America. So this is new information for me.
The dig ni thong ma so ine themna lo nyu yes den do korla. The kheju di jelo tungu la jora. In a South America you said, right?
I only read about it, yes.
Di call your lana lo America yo lo ari la yor lana nge thebjina thong sonsti. Thengma thongbo khugu yosti phuni phomu gyurgur la jora di.
나 그냥 저기서 이 그때만 네 군이 다보기에 군이 군배 나오도 네 가서 어떻게 다와지 같은 상황 군이 희가 마음마랑 통당 물어 통성 네 군이 그 처음에 시사다 다쳐서 고유돼서 상황 기본지지 않았습니다. 어쨌든 이 말을 해서 기본이었어. 사마사에 주체적으로 같이 기본이었어. 그래도 군이 희가 뒤치는 거였어. 그 가리나
So he said he has 2 nephews who are twins. So when both were born, they look similar. But after a month, I see there is a difference in behavior in these 2 boys. So he said like they are under the same environment, under the care of same parents, and it's like they eat the same food, but maybe slight differences in time when they are having food. And rest everything is similar, but still he has seen differences in the behavior of these 2 sons.
Yeah. So they could be twins that are fraternal. They have different DNA, so they came from a different egg from the mom. And that would explain if they have different DNA, that could help explain why they're different. They could also be identical and then change, their DNA is the same, but DNA can be decorated based on your life experiences, and that can change how it behaves.
I'm sorry, what was that? DNA was?
DNA can be decorated. Things can be added on top of the DNA. It can be modified, and that can affect how the DNA behaves.
다 단다 공화 로가 니다 체마 총얼란다 케바 용구라스 안 태가나 시니가 체마 찍고 찍냐 임바 이나게 카시 가르 용식라나 DNA 라 규르도티스 티스토니 DNA 코라랑 라 규르도티스 티스토니 아니 케바 드레 니데 용식레스.
We have twins, kinds of twins that we call fraternal.
다 체마 라 리교 레스라 찍디 가르 시고라나 fraternal 라니 시교 레스.
A woman tossed out 2 eggs at once, and each one separately got fertilized by a different sperm.
딜라드 아메 봉아 요라 로가니 요레스 디나라 딜라드 발라 아니 감카오 파이 감카오 로가니 자디 투 요레스 디나라.
These twins could be a boy and a girl.
따디 체마 차이라 체마 차두 발라 부다 부모 인시 레스.
If they're both boys, they're just brothers like any other brothers, except the same age.
그러니 니가 부인 부차와이나스 그러니 남주 빈자 부빈이 요라 딘데로 차기 레스 남주로.
If one egg is fertilized by one sperm, and then when it divides, it separates off, then it's made 2 different human beings are going to come from those 2 half eggs.
딜라드 공아디 단다 마이 공아디 체 아니 디 파이디 감카오디 데와이나스 디 카케와이나스 라다 차가 차도 차이라스 안 딘데니 차기 레스 디나라 체마 딘데 릭나라.
We call those identical twins.
덴조 아니 체마 딘 아이덴티컬 라나 충바로 라오라 딘데 차기 레스 체마디.
Their DNA is as near the same as each other as we can make it, basically.
딜라드 다 코란조 DNA 따오나 찍바이 레스 니갈라.
Yet over time, those individuals may develop their own personalities or anything.
이네 투즈 마마마 주도가라 코란스나 닝갈라 케바 드레저라 두어드레 딜레 용시 레스 마마 투즈 기차니.
Where I grew up, there's a nearby city called Twinsburg because it was founded by twins.
카나나 게사지 요레스 딜라 카르라 월라나 트윈스버그 라니 밍타시 레스 디 게사나 카르라나 코란조 게사디 카리 유두샤 요르라 와이나 체마 예수샤 주지레스.
Every year now, in the summer, twins from all over the world come to be part of a festival.
카일라나 디 투제 로지 추요서라 디나라 아니 탄다 사요 콜라가 레 khoga jamlingi cho khoga sani thanda chema yujo changma jomni nyamdu digu rest thujudila.
And of course the scientists at my university go there and draw their blood and poke them and study them and do everything.
And di tuje gopsata cheri bada dijo mangbuchle ni khoran jogida thagi thanda che le jora thale ta je shedin changma chigi rest thujudila.
Andade pachawala karana 와이다 엑스니가 동보다 본사바다 엑스니 동보다 단다 만디다라 본자다 제대로 동보.
So you say if it's a boy it's a XY and if it's a girl it's XX. So you talked about in between. So what is in between, right? So what about the chromosome in that?
You can have girls that, or boys, you can have XXY. Babies like that can survive.
That tanda 최봉이라 최봉나라 때라 같이샤 XXY laldas 딘데 용에 부구양 요레스.
You can also have just part of the chromosome, say, is missing, so this X chromosome isn't complete.
딜라도 단당아서 X 기 최봉 딘데로 주 충고요 로스라. 디 차시티스 명수사 참마 상황이 차고요 레스 X.
And those would be some ways that you could get people that are in between boy and girl.
딜라도 딱 딘데 임바이나 최봉도 참마 상황라 X 딜라도야 마닝 차고요 레스 디 푸다 부모이 파르도데.
다다가사나 DNA 그다가 부처 라지 다다가사나 아니 비나 아니 가다 아니 파이 아니 디테지나 마이 디테지 아니 수때네 마이 맞아 아니 수다니 들이 가다 드드니 모로리아 아니 디리가 디테지 수때네 디 부처에
마이 수부나 마이 바체라 칠로라 라
마이 바니 가서 쇼르다니
칠로 파다 마니요 리진 듀니 부구 차이 요르스라니라. So we see that baby is formed inside a mother's body. So is it possible that we take genes from mother and genes from father, and can we produce a baby outside mother's body?
Yes and no. So people sometimes do that now. If they have a disease and they want to make sure their baby doesn't get the disease, we can start to make a baby outside of the body and check to make sure that it doesn't have the DNA for that disease.
The re mariniga langisra chi khari shigur lawana amadila nazaro juyo enasra an pugudi nazama po echudo ani pugudi mai subu chilo la ke jora dinde thamshi chiyo res nazari mayo enchido.
But only for a few days can we keep it alive outside of the body. Then we have to put it inside of a woman's body in order for it to develop into a baby.
Thanda thangbo teiro adini tesa jel nima khashe jringa nya thu res chila. The di jel nima khashe jel ani ya rangja phumeji ki subuna la shagu chiyo res di.
Did that answer this question?
This seo cha suesa. No, it's not clear. So he's asking if is there an instrument wherein we can put father's genes and mother's genes and create a baby, which means it's outside our mother's body. It's a different environment, right?
Grow completely into a baby?
Yeah, to create a baby outside the mother's body, is there an instrument or something wherein we can produce?
We can put the egg and sperm together and start the baby, but the baby will not grow into a baby if it is outside of the mom's body. So we have to put it back into a woman's body.
Leta thanda phada phai kham kauda mai kham mauyra di gonga dini te tu res ra chilola te oina lamsa khoran khol shagu urla oina mai thanda phumeji ki subuna shagu chi resti.
The reasons for this necessity can be many. Sometimes the sperm have no tails, and they need to help from doctors to fertilize the egg.
Ta kabre kham kau dila ngama yoras ngama mejo ndi baina ani subunal droma to ache ni member euroba chini ta di yam do degu ra kham kau da gonga di ani member yendi chini de tu yores.
Sometimes the passageway for where the egg starts, it can't get into the mother's womb, so it needs to happen outside and then be put into the womb.
Dila du gonga losa jura mai dinene ani thanda phine bodo dogu ras di ya le tu yo mares dinde indu ya member de zo roba chini ya di bodo le tu di ramde chi yores.
But still that embryo, that human being, needs at least right now to be growing in a woman's body.
Dila du galta mi gi suk jura di charlong che di khol yungor launa phume gi supuna rang yungu yores di. Khor chyo ko ni khod. So Darwin talks about tree of life. So we see that, so in that they have mentioned about a common ancestor, right? So, but when there's a rainfall and if there is a like shallow ground, and when there's a puddle of water, and we can see after 2 or 3 days we can see fish. So it looks like this fish doesn't have to go, like it doesn't relate to this tree of life.
So that fish must have come from somewhere. Scientists believe that all life comes from life before it. So a scientist would say that fish didn't magically appear in the pond, but there must have been a fish egg or a very, very tiny fish, or maybe a bird picked up a fish and accidentally dropped it into the pond, but it didn't magically appear.
The two of the Yahudus in a tanda nyaki ledger and yat chuna ni mani sumjel tane nya yor la jura ta nya di yor la du bala nya di hopta me inde mixe gi shugi chagyo ro dinde ke shi yo ma resra di khare shi gor la na cheso la du cheso ngama ji yo cheri baina cheso ngama ji yo ji shi yo res ta nya la na cheso yo shi gora ta di la du bala nya di yana nyama di chui nang lo la nya chunji ji yo sigir la res cheri baina yana gonga chi ni nya di char la sigres yana chiuji gi nya khilyo che ni nya di chuna la sawa dinde chi shi yo res di cheso de la ngama cheso ji yo di shi yo res chi cheso chi di ngama di chima di ngama le chungwar lan di shi res cheri bai.
There are places where it doesn't rain often, not like here, where they know fish have laid eggs that are very tough, and then the pond dries up, you don't see fish for a long time, it gets hard like a rock, it rains, and those fish eggs will hatch.
Saja khashela khandu yor lawainas nyai gonga tangres gonga di thapu shu yores ra ani kabre khachig lana chudin zo kamni sadi do thapu shu chag yores ani ine ya tujo chigla chawa phagdu gola yang gonga di rangja nya chagwe de ungu yores.
But scientists have done experiments to test that theory, where they take something, right, that could grow life, and they heat it up so much that all life must die, and then they seal it so no air or water or anything can get in or out. And when they do that, they don't see life regenerate.
The kerangi samchuru cheribai nima samni tagje chiresra di daje na khar chirlana ta di khare khoryu jisue dinala cheso yoache thamongela an chau shu sures di dinala yoje dinala ra chau shu su du khajire cheso sam ma shiru ras meo chares an digi jela tumsha res thanda ngobudi tumsha du gala lungda chuda kheguji juye yo mares thina dila du dinene tas cheso sawa ke laura dinde chungyo mares tagje dina
이건 이렇게 리직 디노라 코롱기 뉴 mamma 차던 기든 니스 차서 리직은 야사지더라
메보 가지 리직 차상 원래 요레스
차상 리직 차상 그 DNA는 야사지더라 야사지더는 내가서 이 리직 DNA 같이 아는 빨라져지네 아니 가서 뭐를 하고 지금 하고 던져.
So is it Yongsi Ruesra? So is it possible that if there is some error like in the genes which gives rise to human hands, so if there is some error, can it give rise to hands of monkeys? If there is error in the gene, in the DNA?
You can get errors, and we see those errors. There are people born with 6 fingers on their hands instead of 5, but you would not get a monkey hand, because the monkey's hand has many changes different from our hands. So you would not get all of those changes at one time by chance, but you could get some different changes, and then you would get a different hand.
Diladu thanda DNA la nondu shwe ndo tukyen shwe dinde yongu yores dinde miro chasha na zugunga sa zugu tu dinde yongu yores ra ine thanda ngonzo piugi lakba yongu relan di yongu yomares khana na kheba ta na kheba shu yores DNA na ra lakba chaydi andi kheba mangbu shwe di tuzu chigla yongu relan na di yongu mares chezam piugi lakba di dinde tugu mares.
Did that answer the question?
Are you the lion or the tiger?
Ta investing ge investa ta res tamsengre mare khare kaje semche khare chigin ta res ta re tamsengre ta re sengir ta re a tiger
네, 좋아해. 다다 서재 소소들 안에 다 시민다 하고도 이제도 좀 알아. 근데 여러 안에 들으셔. 근데 이게 안에 다 샤요로
차주르야
이제 다 안에 시민 이제 그래서 못 가라. 지금 이제
chala khari re cha go la khari che ki re cha de ki la ore ane Okay. So he has two questions. So he said in Tibet there is a bird called Go. He said there is a bird and gives birth to a dog. So
It's a bird that lives in the mountains, right? And it lays an egg, and out of the egg comes a dog.
yes, he said. The gonga tangi rosa, gonga di ani kicha la rosa. Yes. And the second question is during surgery, is there does the gene changes or not during surgery?
I'll answer question 1 if you answer question 2.
Let me start with the simple one. When you have surgery, that's an insult or a challenge to your body.
Dilada kira the shauchu chiyo basu subula da donglin chiyo do dindi nedang ji chagi roas subudila.
Many genes turn on, they become expressed because they're sending out molecules to your body to heal, to grow strong again, to cover the wound, to make the skin grow back together.
Diladu shaudu gala subu di shauchu chidu shawi roas di ani subu suya da ma suya da dindi chido ani subu nanglo la thanda rigze mangbu longi res diga ani dudul mangbu tang di ma di suya chidu lega shu chumbu chiyo res.
Genes express molecules that tell it this is painful.
Ani thanda rigze khashi longor la ra di cha shawina dudul le di khari sorgor la na ngaji di nasu sore di sogi res.
There's a very big interest in medicine in the US about Tibetan meditation.
Dila duda ngaju gom nyamni chejura di ganani Quran sugi thanda nupshoni yan chik lecha doju res.
And the amazing things people who meditate can do to their brain activity to not feel pain.
Dila duda gom nyamlin chini thanda nasu den ma choya jura di chore di ani lebegi chegu jodang jura chawa di galo Quran sugi ta che res. Nasu de cha thuye di.
Instead of taking pills to kill the pain, which can have some bad effects, to just be able to control the pain after surgery is big in our newspapers now all the time.
Dila duda gomgi gyuni thanda nasu chae jur la jura ti so kangjin chedi di yue di ani thanda me sama go gala da kevin che dugala sakbar da dinde na la kera shu cha resti.
So if you visit the States, they'll be putting things on your brain to see what happens when you meditate.
Dila dugala kiran zo thungu das nam gi dela lo ne din zo gar sha gyo dige ani thanda lebe na lo khari chungu yeme jura chego din zo den zo haku res.
But your genes themselves don't change with surgery in any way that's inherited to your children.
Dila dugala shapchu chiwa na rigze la gyo duru la na di du yo mares rigze la gyo do ma pu la gyza la gydon che dinde yo mares. Okay, direct. So during transplantation, so when a kidney is transferred from his body to another person, so is there a change in the other person's body?
When they do that, the very first thing they do is try to find a good genetic match. The chance of me getting a kidney from my mother or father that will be function is much better probably than a gene from someone in Africa, than a kidney that comes from somebody in my country whose ancestors came from Africa.
Dila du tangbo shauju chigra ta thanda khema di mi subu chikshim dene ni pha pe imbai na ra di tangsho khare tayir lana shauju shidu gala phajo mi di da chujo di rigze thungu de tay res tangbo de ani di thue di yasho khare chago lana thanda gela khura cha shana khorangi amagi khema di le oina rigze yaga thungu res ra di thanda shemba di mi shemba ji african ilejo doji imbai na dinzo gi khema lembai na rigze shira thungu mares cheza so amada thundu gala amadi khema di lingi res.
The DNA in that donated kidney is from the person who gave the kidney.
Hine thanda khema ta 샤우주 신이 루셰이라 디조데 네바디날 아니 디 케마디 수이 차고르라나 디 DNA 디 가르 차고르라나 ngama tenge jora 디 DNA 차도 res.
The person who received the kidney is always on medicine so that immune system doesn't hurt the kidney that's a little bit foreign.
Dilata kema sawajlo chayura di subuna ombu sawaji ndugala susu subui kharchir lawena ta korame tangwache ani nego malagi phajol manu tanda di sawacha di dugala ani mengi ma kagu resti.
Oh, right, the bird dog. So we had that question at Sarah University when I taught there. And we looked the bird up on the internet. And it is a bird that lays an egg, and from that egg hatches a bird. But the baby bird, its call sounds like a barking dog.
Di tiyo di tanda chago gi tanda gonga ni ki go lajora. Di tanda nima sera lalab di tiyo thiaran le songsra. And di chiu di khande me thaja nata isra. And thaja nata du gala chiu di ri gang la gonga tangi res lan tishas. And gonga di kha chi ra. Chiru tundu gala chiru di daj tungura thambodi. Di khare dor lana ki ke yedu ke do res ki ke do res di tadi. Ine ki mares dat tanda chiru di daj tungura di ine ki drag do restless. Ine ki mares chiru res chiru restless. La khari mare ki tongere So he said people have seen like it's a dog.
Scientists, as a scientist, I would want to see the evidence for that.
Tanga cheri de gela. Cheri ba imbe chanes ra. Cheri ba cha imbe chane ani pangda gugu ras dilangara thong gugu res.
개봉 집에 들어서 고치지.
고기 지요레스 아니.
이 파트 되고. 네. 아마라.
고기 지요레스 아니.
어디 고치대 개봉 집에 붙어 코로나 쳤다가라 이거데. 세복면서 치도 둔다.
키직다. 고기 직다. 근데 지우기 공원이 등교래라고 하다. So he said there's an expert whose name is Khare Jingme. Kewang Khare Jingme Pinso. There is an expert, his name is Jingme Pinso. He has a pet dog. So that dog, he claimed that it was from a bird.
But there was no video of the dog hatching from an egg, right? How do we know? What experiment would they do to see?
Kila, tadi kidi korangi shiora ta di chani chungyo reslan shiyoras ene ngaran chole nyint di longi inde measa di gonga ni theni kidi thungyo aj tong maralas yinti longi yo maras kogi lawa sam kyawan di shior sam ro la ta
뭐 잔데 기도도 시에다 그걸 잔데 기도도 간다지 잔데 간다지니 니 고치에리스로
Sende dongboyo on the kandeski resla ratio. So how are these sandalwoods how does it grow?
How does what go?
Sandalwood, the tree.
How does sandalwood grow?
So what about its seed? So what is its seed? Yeah, where does it grow from?
We'll have to look that one up and get back to them.
Oh, tanda di tsenden judo gele. Di korla ni tani la was tanda seuji la to samares.
저도 주도 다그 잔데요. 잔데디 나도 샤지가 동절 샤지가 좁아 동절.
차지 쪼고 땅요래.
샤지가 좁아 디기 좁아.
So we say that a sandalwood tree was born because a bird defecated. So because from that feces.
So it's very common for birds to eat seeds. That's why fruits and seeds taste good, because the tree wants them to be eaten. And then the bird has the seed inside of their stomach, and when it defecates, it drops the seed and can now grow a tree.
Dende chidang mangbu thoe res gela. Chidang mangbu thoe res cha din zo khare sa sama ora koran zo chingdo da du din zo sagi ras. An deni ma chogo tang du chogo na la du da dende saben de zo ligi res. An di saben di ya ke yu res chel shingdong cha yu dende yu res.
샤지도 마다 시버도 저거 동안 때 잔데.
So there is one particular bird which whose feces turns into sandalwood tree. There are no other birds.
So perhaps one species of bird.
Yeah. The nyerik chik lagoralas. Cha chik lana chai nyerik chik lagoras. Cha thearan lagora. The rik chik pa lagora. Charik chik lagora. Yes, one particular species.
So, right, that bird may have evolved with the sandalwood tree, that just that bird is the only type of bird that can eat that tree's seed.
The cha nyerik chik yor larwa. Khare. Ki did lagore. So the dog they were talking about is this dog.
It's a very cute dog.
Ki ning jibe dulas.
But how do I know whose parents it were?
Tanga handes ha ures digi padama.
Okay, there's people in the back that have
Ota gyam ni dus.
Oh.
Tanaka 저 먹을 지다 아니 신지 신관들이 지다 따라고 들이 지트는 공로 차이.
So is it possible that if we mix a gene from a tiger and a human, can there be an offspring?
로지는 그게 지나 먹고 있는 줄아. 이나 약간 로지도 그냥 지나 도서 있어. 왜 지는 게 되지. 그때 지지 단아가서 그래서 와이나네 보글 지트니 메와지라. 보글 지트 메와지는 거 아니 보글 지트 집어라 되네. 라. 그들이 부차이.
So can we produce an offspring just by having a mother's genes without a father?
We've used the word species a lot in here, but we haven't defined the term species.
Tanganzu nyerik lani phejo mangbu chi dos thandara. Ine thanda nyerik ladi nganzu dishi gyayo mares thange dikhari me.
So scientists define two different species as organisms that cannot mate to make a functional baby.
Diladu tseri bai nyerik ladi khande ji lawor lawena nyerik chik bai na phadama deni ani pugu se thuri lagyo res nyerik minda waina ani pugu chagi yo mares.
So you can get very closely related species to have an offspring.
You can have, right?
I'll keep going.
Diladu wala nyerik tau shu yo aina ya pugu yo de yo res.
A donkey and a horse can produce an offspring. It has the size of a horse, but the strength of a donkey.
Diladu wala tada pungu nite ni ani chai roas nyam de deni. And diladu wala chejung ta waina tada res. Ni shuk de khande wala na pungu do shu res dila.
That animal in our country is called a mule, and it's very prized for how much work it can do.
Diladu di semje dilanganju lungban mule la res thera di res ani di
But it can't have baby mules. You have to go back and mate the donkey to the horse to get more mules.
Rigze chipa res loga res la dikechara
ta kete khangura tinga rigze chipa yasa sura khangura goma tinga ta
chipa ina sra
chipa yasa ina khangura goma wara
loma
goma kambu chhont kasa ta khangura rigze tinga jantin gadaru rewa mares
Loma kambucha wana di rigze di pe tu maros laura re kambucha na rigze di eshi do ras di ya ma yange pel tu re mares ra. Okay, so this question is are the genes of trees and insects same or different? And when we see a leaf and if the leaf dies, the gene will the gene also die with the leaf, or does it still reproduce? Does it still make copy?
Kandra thamaki tinda nang sithane ka khandu yoga ora yoga tingi bas ta dugida nang thani dikani ji batuk is
Loma di kambucha resra kambucha sane budu sonsra di khandes chares. So I have seen that the dried leaves changed into an insect. So how come such change happens?
Okay, so what first question? Yes, we have many genes in common between us and plants because we are all made of cells, and our cells still have to make the membranes that surround them, they still have to take DNA and copy it. They still have to take DNA and translate it into protein. So all of those genes for the same things we need to do to keep our cells alive are shared.
Tadanda mida zishinro chashawana ge rigze tawana rigze tumongi rigze mangbu chadores. Dina chashawana kailam tabongi dupshe yo chadugala tabong lo kimo yoras. Di kimo doya ge rigze da ta tabong chele chea rigze dinzu niga chikpa chadores. Dinde yores.
When an organism dies, its DNA is no different from the rest of its body. The skin degrades, the bones will eventually degrade, and the DNA will eventually degrade too.
Dila duta tanda loma do shera pakpa do imbaine di shidugal pakpa di shidu dugala thana shi di nang lo khari re dubcha DNA ras DNA ge khali khali se du res
DNA this is one that's good. DNA this is one that the luma kamu shiksamara. Luma kamu shiksamara kasa ku nang DNA this is chara.
So when the leaf dries, the DNA degrades, right? So there is no DNA. So how come that insect is formed?
So I would suggest that the insect is not formed from the leaf. It probably is eating the leaf as it's decaying. And that's where the insect comes from. You could do an experiment though, maybe we should set one up, where we take leaves, clean them off, put them in a jar and seal it. And then we can take other leaves, put them in a jar with dirt and some insects, and let's see which one develops the insect.
The tawchina digyo resti thanda gelakhrang shedi loma kamba ne bucha shalara budi loma ne bujura dinde yomares budi kharir lana loma sa dinge loma de rugu yorada ruyu kapso ani budi ki sa de jo dinde ji insi res dila nga chu tawchina digyo res tawchina kharir lana shedam do ni le dinal chigna la loma chi pusha khajabche chingna la loma sha dina la damda buda dinde lu ra and dini tawchina digyo res.
Some insects in my backyard that have wings lay their tiny eggs in leaves of a certain plant.
Marala thanda chishin and US Korea na nanglara dila dugala ani loma khashela kharir lawena budenzo phab ani koran sugi konga loma kal tangi res.
You can't see eggs, you just see that the leaf has a lot of little speckles on it.
Dila du gonga di thong mares manjugi khar thong lantis chi puyo joro ya loma kala dinde chi thong res.
That is in fact what causes the leaf to fall off and die. Those little eggs develop in the ground and outfly insects.
So he said there were no changes on the leaf, but still I've seen insects growing from that leaf.
So there are also insects that look just like leaves. They have evolved to look like leaves so that predators see a leaf and not an insect, so they won't eat it.
No, he's saying about the surface of the leaf, the design and everything, it's just the same. And there is nothing on it. There are no eggs. So he said there were no changes on the leaf surface. It's just the same. But still I have seen growing insect from that leaf and it dies.
Can you bring one in for us? So I have seen this near camp number 6 hospital. There is a hospital at a Tibetan camp. So he's saying I've seen the same leaf, there were no changes on the leaf. I mean, the eggs can be so small that you can't see them, but bring in the leaf and let's look under the microscope.
Ani loma di jala raw ana kyongro chis. An ngazo gonga di thong mares migi. Ani tanda thadon chisi na ta hospi loma di rana.
Ye kalita kazom ngazo rigi ke kotak ke de na ha ko masu. Ini x to y di 최종 계동 조다 차니 x to y 따위에 말했어 지지. 다때 간이니와 간단히 여기 만인지와 만인지는 X게 컴바티야 tes 통도 그다 Y 노도 X가 만인지를 지차고 근데 이 만인 차오를 송송 근데 이거 있는 아니 가서 Y니 컴바티 끝이지 아니 X
Next door.
차에 용조사네 이는 아니 부모님 문 위에 또 용조사를 상호 용도 있어 아니 간다 나서 그 배차 나무로 수만 뒤에 이거 봐 얘기하고 이래서 이 그래서 Y 때 컴바티 파 기생 또 최고 노다들 리치니 진 아기슨 뒤에 그 용조사를 기타다 많이 비슷한 그런
So there are two questions. So the first one is you have mentioned chromosomes as X and Y. So is it because of the shape of the chromosome that you have termed it as X and Y? You have named it as X and Y. And the second question is since you have talked about in between offspring, the babies. So in this you have shown that this part of the X is shorter. That's why it's in between. So likewise, we feel that there is a possibility that when this part extends, we see that there is a possibility that this part extends and the boy changes into a girl.
Okay, so the names do not come from the shape of the chromosomes. The chromosomes all have sort of the same shape. They're all just a long string of DNA.
Tanda ming jura and the X Y taya jura di sobdal tani she mares. The sobong den chidangi koran jo kharlana DNA rang yu sesha yu tau do chade res sama.
You can get changes, right? So you can lose part of the X chromosome. You can also have, if I had drawn Y as green, you could also have some of that Y chromosome accidentally go onto the X, and then when that's given to a daughter, right, that daughter has X and some Y chromosome. So lots of different changes can happen.
So this part of Y comes towards this, right?
Yeah.
So in this, are there 3 chromosomes or 2?
So let's say you had a boy and he is XY, and when he is making his sperm, some of the Y chromosome gets added to the X chromosome. So now when that goes to make a baby, right, that baby has 2 X chromosomes but also a little bit of Y, and that could be an in-between.
Tanda pugu chayo kapsu di Y gi chashesh doa di X kan lo do si res ra dindi jo do inas pugu di chadu gala XX simba inage Y gi tanda ne chunjush doa di chadi le de res dela.
Cells, that's a stress on the cell. The cell can't survive a big chunk of DNA adding on.
Dila do tabung koran ne to me jo chayo res kana na DNA gi chashe chimbuji dina la da su de jo chadi ros.
이 좋아서 그다음 그 저와는 뭐 노동들을 이제 지금 또는 저 맛이 계속 시고 말로. 그래서 시험때 맞추기 가르스는 저 네가 저 뭐만 되는 뭐 뭐지 이거라. 아니 뒤쪽 거는 가르스는 이제 요로 제가 물어 요를 가르쳐 있어.
Kyawangama tingyu resra dila ani rigzigi
저도 나도 생각이 좀 시험을 제가 있나 저 맛이 계속 시고 말로. 이제 그런 거 그 많이 이제 한테 맞춰 교수님이 나와 저 뭐만 제일 뭐 어떻게 되고요. 그래서 한번 계획해 보자. 이게 아직 가르치는 저
kyan kelingyu resra ndi nga kelingyu resra manjo changma kelingyu laur nge kelingyu laur manjo changma
어디 시작하면 상황을 거 지지고. 이 오늘 인지가 안에 따라서는 재미 주주리 안에 따라서는 내비 이제 만나고 이렇게 가르쳐.
So the scientists don't talk about previous life and the like past life, so but about rebirth, right? So past life. So he said like we have seen people and we know that people can remember their past life. So is there any difference in the genes in these people who remember past life?
No.
No.
So the scientists haven't seen evidence to show that there are people that have had a past life. So we haven't studied differences in people that think they have had a past life and those that don't remember a past life.
But in Western, I think in Western science, the idea of a past life is still unknown, and we don't know how to study that.
Diladu thanda kewangama le jora digi samsu ta tawa jora di ani thanda theribai gochugu yo maras andi shimju khande chigu yo me di theribai hagu yo mares.
Maybe we had a lot of Tibetans who could study that.
And peba hashi ji di ga shimju china digi yo ras tip chitu ras.
Do some of the students remember past life?
Kiranz nangne ne kewangama tinge yo elas. Kiranz nanglo mishirda thanda kalan thanda yo lana pangda tharanta khari me di she khabdu shigra quran khani tinge yo esa.
Dani 가서 찜체 저기 찜이 줘라.
나닝가.
다니 거기서 구주 배달이 구주도 아메리카에서 사진도 뉴욕에나 공부 중이지. 공부 중인데 찜인데 사진도 쇼시.
그 산스크리트.
사진도 쇼시. 나디 사진도 시고 거의도 들어가기 있는 분들이 시고. 나디 리딩 들어가는 게 시작.
So in previous year, one of the professors of biology told them that in their neighboring city there was a girl who speaks Sanskrit, the language you know, right? Sanskrit. So there is no way that she can learn Sanskrit from that area because they speak inji rangyagora di koryodi. So it's in the US, so they speak English. So there is no way she learns Sanskrit from her family or neighbor or wherever. So how So how do you explain this from genes? In terms of genes?
So we can't explain that from genes. The genes of that girl, I'm sure if we looked at them, came from the mother that gave birth to her and the father that was also involved. But the difficulty with scientists in studying past lives is that it's very difficult to know everything that happened in that girl's life because scientists were not studying her up until she claimed that she had a past life and started speaking Sanskrit. So many scientists would doubt that she had a past life and they would think that she learned that from somewhere.
Kewangama lomo Sanskrit shingi yore thanda chezang shitu yore la jora di ngaro jemban kewangama kor shigi yo maras ta di kor la shimju chetu yo maras di la du cheri bai khari shir la waina ani thanda Sanskrit di mi shimba chi gyuni shimbare la jora jang ne shimbare la di shigi yores an thanda rigze rang la ta waina rigze ta de wala phani yo ada mani yo chi di shigi yores cheri bai.
Having said that, and that's absolutely correct, I don't think anybody in science, everyone in science appreciates in Western science how complicated the brain is and how little we understand about it.
Chikda cheri na sheoinas thanda onjo lebe nang loke je shiras leba ledi rongbo nyozin chenji chade res dila du dikola thanda shiuji shigi yo mares ngara cheri bai bai nai di thola shela shigi yo mares lebe korla.
There, a neurologist wrote of a doctor who was hit by lightning, who died and had to be resuscitated. He came back to life.
The onzo cheri ba member yora dinde jures wangza and Quran limba na lo kyuni ni ta thonga do chares ine ya rangja lo do tang ni ya rangja suen tu res kuma.
After that lightning strike, he became obsessed with Mozart piano.
Tadi thand lo kyuni di chir la jora member dila jelo Quran suen cha jela ni Quran gi kharir lana the roja piano la jua di rang la lawa chhanding dinde ji chares.
And that's what he started doing. He had no interest in that before he was hit by lightning.
Dila du thangwa lo kyura lo ma kyu khong la Quran mi jena la piano la di roja di lawa changyu mares digas thunang chi yu mares ra di lo kyu cha jela ni piano la gaw shu cha gyo roj piano rang la lawa chhanding dinde ji cha ku gyur de res.
And I don't think the lightning mutated his brain.
Anga di samgu mindus thanda lo kyuni ani leba di la gyurdo do la jara the mutation di chunga di chi mes samgu mindus.
Yes, scientists don't understand consciousness well yet.
Di la du cheri bai thanda sheba la jara di kor go chu yo mares.